Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. We're 7 games into the Premier League season and people are already making their minds up on who got it right and who got it horribly wrong in the summer window. We got it right by bringing in the former Newcastle, Crystal Palace and West Ham manager Alan Pardew. Draw your own conclusions about Kaveh Solokol and Mark McAdam.
And it's a good evening from me, Michael Bridge. Loads to talk about in this hour. And clubs are already planning what they need or don't need to do in January. I have a Manchester City update on the way, along with news from Leeds and Arsenal.
We're also taking Marc Guehi as a subject as European interest in a pre-contract agreement grows, and we'll have the inside story on how his now infamous deadline day move to Liverpool fell through. Was Super Jackie Grealish the best move of the window? We'll talk more about the standout summer signings. And we've been asking you, who's been the Premier League's best signing since 2020? Around 250,000 of you have got involved so far. We'll reveal the results a little bit later on. Right, transfer shows. So we're going to start with a transfer update relating to Chelsea. Our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokol, has it. Are they going to buy a goalkeeper in January?
No, they're not. They're not going to buy a goalkeeper in January, and I don't think Chelsea will be buying a goalkeeper next summer either. The reason they won't be making a move in the transfer market in that position is because they feel they already have 3 high-quality options. The first one is Robert Sanchez, second one, Philip Jorgensen, the third one, a young goalkeeper, Mike Penders, a Belgian goalkeeper who's out on loan at Strasbourg, who I think you're going to be hearing a lot about in the future. He's somebody who's been compared to Thibaut Courtois. He's playing really, really well for Strasbourg at the moment. A couple of man-of-the-match performances, lots of clean sheets for them. Philip Jorgensen, who's the number 2 at the moment, he's somebody who, I've got to tell you, some of the biggest clubs in the Premier League tried to sign him in the summer, but he decided to stay at Chelsea. Robert Sanchez, I know he's made some high-profile mistakes. He was sent off recently against Old Trafford, but I think he's cut down the number of mistakes. He's a brilliant shot stopper. He was voted the best goalkeeper at the Club World Cup in the summer. So I think a little bit too much is being made of the fact that Chelsea need to sign another goalkeeper. The feeling at Chelsea is that they don't need to sign another goalkeeper.
All right, so no goalkeeper. What about centre-backs? Signing centre-backs in January?
No, they won't be signing a centre-back either. I know, again, lots of people are saying Levi Colwill is out. They've got all these injury and suspension problems, centre-back position. Why don't they go out and sign somebody like Marc Guehi? Well, they have a lot of faith in the centre-backs they already have at the club. You know, I could go through them all. They've got Trevor Chalobah, Tosin Adarabioyo, Wesley Fofana, Badiashile, Achimpong. Colwill will be coming back. Reece James can play as centre-back as well. Jarell Hato, who they signed predominantly as a left-back from Ajax this summer, he can play as a centre-back as well. So again, the feeling at Chelsea is we have a lot of excellent young centre-backs. OK, a few of them have been out. Wesley Fofana, concussion problem. Chalobah suspended. They will all be coming back. Levi Colwill will be coming back as well. So, you know, the answer is not always just to get the checkbook out. The answer sometimes is just to say to the head coach, you've got all these options, you come up with the solutions, because the solution is not just to keep throwing money at a perceived problem.
Alan, Jamie Carragher said Chelsea win nothing with this goalkeeper and these centre-backs. So what do you make of the news they're not going for either position in the next window?
Well, just to correct him, they won the World Club Championship with this squad, so they've won something already. I don't know where he's got that from. But
afternoon, Jamie.
But listen, the model at Chelsea is very much young players coming through the system. So it makes sense when you look at the size of the squad to say, wow, you know, it's so big that to inflate it again this early and maybe look at it in January would be an error. Let's let the manager put these players in. Let's have a look what we got. We know when they're all back, we're strong enough. I think the one position, if I was the manager, that would concern me is the goalkeeper. I agree with Jamie on that front. I think that is a problem position. I'm not sure he's really kind of answered all the questions, and whether they bring the boy back from Strasbourg or whatever is a question that might get answered in January.
Are you surprised, Mark, they're not going in again in January in those positions?
Yeah, well, Carve covers Chelsea and has good relationships with people at the football club. The one thing I will say is that whilst the stance is one thing right now, just say there's an injury to a key player, Robert Sanchez gets injured or there's an issue, does that mean they still won't go and do business in January? If they've got that opportunity to strengthen, then why wouldn't you use it? Because as we've said earlier on in the show, if you have that moment where you fail to do something in January and then the season peters out and you look back and you think, oh, we were in a really strong position there, but we had one problem area that we didn't address, that's the perfect reason why the January transfer window exists, for you to go out and get that extra player, fill in the void, go and get someone that could transform it. I'm sure you probably made signings in January that have actually changed the dynamic or the end of your season.
Absolutely.
One or two signings, one or two moments in games, a late substitute that scores or a big save from a goalkeeper, and suddenly your season ends in the way you want it to because of that one signing in January.
Yeah, but, it's also like the conversations that technical directors are having now with their ownership, and I'll include Chelsea in that, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have the same conversations in January. We've got a lot of football to be played. Yeah. There's things that can happen. And, of course, you can hit crisis point with the points you're raising. If you get 2 or 3 big injuries, then you need to act, particularly if you want to win trophies. So,
if this goalkeeper's so good, the one at Strasbourg, why don't they just bring him in?
Because he's young, and they signed him.
If you're young enough, you're good enough, Carve.
No, but in a goalkeeping position in the Premier League, you need somebody who's got a little bit of experience. I think if he stays the whole season at Strasbourg, and if you add up the games he's played at international level as well, if he was to move to Chelsea next summer, then he would have about 70 games under his belt. And I think maybe that is enough first team experience for him to be able to challenge to be the number one at Chelsea. Just going back to the centre-back position as well, Chelsea also have Mamadou Sarr at Strasbourg on loan. They have Aaron Anselmino on loan at Borussia Dortmund as well. So they have another 2 high-quality centre-backs who can come back in next summer as well. Also, who is available? It's all well and good, us sitting on TV and saying Chelsea need to go out and sign another centre-back. But who is out there who is better than what they already have? One player they looked at who can play as a central centre-back is Dean Howson. They were interested in signing him in the summer. They would have signed him if he'd wanted to come to Chelsea. But of course, he, in the end, wanted to move to Real Madrid. And the final point I would make about Chelsea and transfers is because of the agreement they have with UEFA, because they broke their financial fair play rules, they have to balance their transfer spending. And in the summer, they actually made a profit on their transfers. And going forward, that is another consideration as well.
Carve's reeled off player after player after player who's either at Chelsea or on loan from Chelsea. Have they got too many players?
Well, it is a problem, particularly when you're the manager, to kind of, orchestrate how it's all going to evolve and their pathways to the first team. And going out on loan, obviously, is one of those pathways that you have to sort of implement to make sure that they got a chance. But, when he is picking that team, sometimes he must scratch his head at night thinking, I've got so many options here. And you could get confused with the numbers, i.e. the options, and confuse yourself. And you can't see the wood for the trees kind of thing. So where he's sitting, I would love to be sitting because I think he's got a fantastic squad. And I don't think they need a centre-half particularly. The goalkeeper one, I still have the slight reservations. But, when you look at the history of winning Premier League, you must have top goalkeeper. Yeah. That is a given.
What about the players who are there that Chelsea don't want? Raheem Sterling, Axel Disasi. What about them? Will they be gone in January?
Look, there is a good chance they will go in January. What Chelsea are doing behind the scenes is trying to find moves for them so they'll be able to go in January. But it's up to the players as well. They have to say, look, I don't want to stay at Chelsea. I don't want to be training just with me and Raheem or me and Axel together. I want to go out and play first-team football again. So it's a two-way street. But they really don't have a first-team future at Chelsea. So if they want to carry on playing, then they need to stay fit, which is what they're doing, and agree to whatever moves Chelsea put in front of them. Another player who could be leaving as well is Tyreek George. He came very, very close to moving to Fulham on deadline day a couple of weeks ago. That move fell through at the last minute. He's been back playing for Chelsea. I think he even started the Champions League game against Benfica last Tuesday, but he's seen predominantly as a winger. And I think that's why he's likely to leave in January, because Chelsea have so many options in those positions. You know, they've got Pedro Neto, they've got Estevao, they've got Jamie Gittins, they've got Garnacho, Giovanni Quenda, they've signed from Sporting Lisbon. He's staying at Lisbon. He's going to be joining next summer as well. So I think Tyreek George is going to leave in January. He won't be short of options because plenty of Champions League and Europa League clubs were interested in signing him in the summer.
Enough, Chelsea. Michael Bridge.
Now, before you think it's too early, some managers have told us that they start talking January the day after the summer deadline. So 86 days to go until the January window opens, and we're getting a sense of how some clubs will approach the window. Now, Manchester City are calling plans to sign a new right-back due to the impressive performances of Abdul Kadir Kushanov, the Uzbekistani international, primarily a centre-back, featured at right-back in City's matches against Manchester United, Napoli and Arsenal, instead of Rico Lewis. Now, City made a number of significant signings in January 2025, including Kushanov, mainly due to the difficulties they were having in the Premier League last season. And it would likely take a similar situation to force the same level of investment in the squad this upcoming winter window. Right, Leeds United are understood to be monitoring the market for wingers ahead of the January transfer window after a deadline day move for Harry Wilson fell through. Now, nothing has changed regarding the club's admiration for the Fulham player, but Leeds are realistic about their chances of reigniting a deal after Marco Silva said he was confident of agreeing a new contract with the Wales international. Now, Leeds will have to be mindful, like many clubs, of PSR if they do business in January. Managing Director Robbie Evans said after the summer that we are maxing PSR out this season. Right, the league leaders. How about this? David Raya was given an improved contract by Arsenal earlier in the summer. It understood his wages were increased, but the length of the deal until 2028 with the one-year option remained the same as the previous one. It was agreed earlier this year, but not announced by the club, and has been done to reflect his importance to the team. Now, this is an interesting one as well. Arsenal are also understood to have made a similar move with Leandro Trossard's contract earlier this year, improving the Belgian's salary, but keeping the length of his deal the same until 2027.
Right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have the inside story of exactly what happened behind the scenes on deadline day as Marc Guehi's move to Liverpool collapsed. That is not to be missed. See you in a moment. Hello again, this is the Transfer Show. Now, Marc Guehi, as we all know, missed out on a deadline day move from Crystal Palace to Liverpool. So, where did it all go wrong? And is there any prospect of a deal in January? Well, Mark and Kave have the inside track on exactly what happened to this deal from both sides of the divide. So let's get into it. All right, Kave, first of all, why did it go all the way down to the wire?
You know what? I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. And I do remember the day after deadline day, I was driving to work and a couple of people who were involved in the deal called me. And there was so much information coming out that I had to actually drive to a Tesco's car park to park and sit down, get a pen and pad out and write everything down that they were telling me. But basically what they were telling me is that Liverpool wanted Marc Guehi, but they didn't really want him that much.
Oh.
They were quite sort of laid back about whether they were going to get him or not, and they didn't really, go all out to get him. Quite late in the window, they got in touch with Crystal Palace and said, look, we're willing to pay £35 million for him. He's only got a year left on his contract. And they didn't really budge from that. There was no sort of real desire to get him at all costs. And obviously Crystal Palace didn't want to lose him for nothing next summer. So they accepted reluctantly the offer. And we all know what happened on deadline day. You know, the player by then was keen to move to Liverpool. He was having his medical. But the problem was that Crystal Palace could not put options in front of Oliver Glasner, which Oliver Glasner was willing to accept. He was saying, for instance, to Steve Parish, the executive chairman, look, no, this guy's not good enough if we're going to sell Marc. And to give Steve Parish credit, my information was that around 4 o'clock, he said, I'm really sorry, but Marc Guehi's not going anywhere. He has to stay with Crystal Palace. We haven't been able to find a replacement who is good enough. And that news was, passed on to Liverpool. And then eventually, Steve had a face-to-face meeting with Marc Guehi and also Marc Guehi's father, I think, and his representatives to explain the situation to him. And of course, Marc Guehi was upset. But absolute and total credit to Marc Guehi, he's put that all behind him and his focus 100% has been on Crystal Palace this summer. So I think the reason he didn't end up at Liverpool was I don't think Liverpool really went all out to get him. If they really, really wanted him, they could have moved much earlier in the window for him.
Mark, so Liverpool didn't want him that much. Is that what you heard?
Liverpool are one of the biggest clubs in the country and one of the biggest clubs in the world. They're always relaxed about who they sign, and there has to be a desperation from the player to go and play at Liverpool and be a part of the fabric of that institution that is that football club. So they're always relaxed and they always want players that want to join them. And Marc Guehi's situation, because he's so respectful to Crystal Palace and what they've done for him and the platform they've given him in his career, which has elevated him into the position of being a key member of that England squad, I think he was very relaxed on that situation as well. Liverpool's stance on all of their transfer activity over the course of this summer is it the right player? Is it the right price? And do they add to what we're doing? And if that set of criteria is all ticked, then they'll go and try and get the player. But they are very relaxed on the situation. There'll also probably be those at Liverpool that say, well, we'll be in the mix in the summer when he's available for free because we are that big as a football club. And we can command...
not if Marc Guehi is watching this and he's heard they weren't that bothered before.
Carve's perspective.
No, I didn't say they weren't that bothered. But the first time there was any talks between Liverpool and Crystal Palace about him moving was at the Community Shield. So this was just before the season was going to start. The point I'm making is if he was a priority signing for Liverpool,
they'd have gone all in.
They would have gone in much earlier, and maybe they would have increased their bids for him, but they didn't.
And there were other players that they were looking at as well. We noticed they've obviously signed. Leone was a brilliant defender that they've managed to get over the line. Obviously, they've got Virgil and Konate as well, so they've got two established centre-backs that have just won the Premier League. And the message would have been, well, there's no guarantees that you're going to be starting games. Marc Guehi would have been saying, well, I need to be playing because I've got a World Cup in 2026, so therefore do I take that opportunity to move? So I think it was one of those situations where Liverpool wanted the player, but Liverpool's always bigger than any individual, so it has to be the desire and the aspiration that actually, do you want to come to us? They presented a package to Dean Howson and he decided to go to Real Madrid, and there would have been other players over the course of the summer where they would have said, well, we'd like to take you, but actually, it's up to you as well, as much as it is up to us. So, yeah, I think their perspective was they were quite relaxed, but that's the way they operate with a lot of their transfer activity.
So what next for Guehi then, Carve?
If I had to put money on it, I would say he's going to end up next summer playing for Real Madrid or Barcelona. I think clubs like Real Madrid and Barcelona now have an advantage because they can sign a pre-contract agreement with him in January, which Premier League clubs obviously can't do. So Premier League clubs will have to wait until next summer if they want to sign him on a free. Obviously, Premier League clubs could make Crystal Palace a big offer for him in January. But, how big would it be considering he's going to be a free agent in the summer? Speaking to some people at other Premier League clubs, what they're telling me is the feeling really is that he's such a good player and Real Madrid and Barcelona and Bayern Munich are all interested in signing him, that they definitely will have the advantage. And we all know what the Real Madrid playbook is. We all know what they're going to be doing. There's going to be stories in Marca. Maybe on the last day of the January window, they'll make a bid for the player, just like they did for Trent Alexander-Arnold last summer, knowing that it's going to be refused because it's a last-minute bid, but then they can turn around and say, well, look, we're Real Madrid, we did things properly. We even offered to pay a transfer fee in January. Yeah. So watch out, prepare for all those scenarios. But Marc Guehi, you've got to take your hat off to the way he conducts himself and the way he plays, because some other players would really have had their heads turned by the amount of interest that there is in him.
Alan, have Liverpool missed a trick here?
Well, firstly, I don't agree with all of them statements.
Go on, tell us what you disagree with.
Well, some of that Liverpool PR spin about not wanting him. Of course they wanted him. He's a great player.
Yeah.
And he would have fitted Liverpool perfect. And I'm sure that deal was done to the point where Crystal Palace are in danger of their manager walking out. So there was a situation there that they had to resolve. You've got to stay. We need you to stay. Let's forget about the money for a minute, even though it's very costly for Crystal Palace, because that money is important.
Yeah.
Every penny is important at Premier League level because it takes you another step. So some of that PR spin, some of that is truth. But the bottom line is what we got here is an outstanding individual as a footballer and as a personality.
Yeah.
And every club will want him. My guess is that internationally will be an option because of that January clause where a club can sign him. And I think Munich are in the box seat.
Munich.
And I think that's similar to Real Madrid. They have a similar model. They're looking for some kind of influence and change and value to their signings. So he'll play for any of them teams. And I think he'll be brilliant for England in the World Cup. So it's all Marc has ended up, in my view, in a better position actually than he is if he'd have moved to Liverpool. He's now perhaps even still got Liverpool, apart from that PR spin. We don't believe that. So who knows? He's in a great position.
So he's in a great position.
I'll tell you one more thing.
Go on.
I know he's a real family person, and I know his father's very influential. And I think between him and his father, the decision will be made.
OK, so he's in a better position. What about Crystal Palace? Because they're going to lose him, and they're not going to get any money.
Well, even if they get 6 months, it's been 6 months out of him, which they could, if it had gone to Liverpool, they wouldn't have had. I mean, where are they? 6th in the Premier League as we stand. There are 19 games unbeaten until Everton. Fortunately for Everton, they just got it over the line because Palace were unlucky in that game. I think Palace are an outstanding team. The manager's done an excellent job. His contract is running out. So they've got problems, Palace. Not with Marc, but with the manager and Walton, who's everybody is looking at. So they have got some issues, but nice issues. There are issues when you're a team like Palace, who usually finish 12th or 14th. They only finished 10th when I was manager, but that's another story. This is all good. This is all good news in a way, but also problematic news.
Yeah. So we understand. We're surmising that Glasner said, "I'm going to go if you do that."
Well,
when you were Crystal Palace manager, would you have done that?
Well, I would have definitely tried to throw my toys out of the pram, so to speak, and I have done on several occasions.
And how do you do that?
Well, you have to make it, as clear as possible to the owner that this is going to be a massive problem for you, for me to manage the team. Because the expectation of all the players drops when you sell someone like Marc. I had it with Andy Carroll at Newcastle, and I was pleading with Mike not to sell him. Don't sell him. And I was saying there was 28 million, 29 million at the time, last day of the window. And actually, I ended up getting Newcastle and Mike actually £5 million more, because I kept saying no. And I keep saying no, but in the event, eventually they accepted. But there was a certain amount of pressure, particularly on Steve Parish, I think, from the American ownership, perhaps to get that money.
Okay.
And I think Steve, with his more football mind, knew that the manager was going to be an issue, knew that Marc probably would still play at the same level. It was a better call, and I think that's what they made it.
Just to be fair to Oliver Glasner, I think he himself has said that I never said to Steve Parish that I would leave if you sold Marc Guehi. And I think Steve Parish was never told directly by Oliver Glasner that Glasner would
Yeah, but
quit.
I have to
if he
interrupt
sold.
a little bit there.
And
Go on,
also-
Alan.
and
Hold
also-
on,
and
hold
also-
on a minute,
Also,
hold on a
one thing.
Go on.
If Oliver Glasner quit over Marc
No,
Guehi,
I never said quit.
That would cost him.
No.
That would cost him something like £5 million.
He would never quit. I'm not saying that. But the point is, you got a manager who's, let's be honest, way above the level, right? So he's like doing a great job.
He's in a powerful
Do
position.
you want to demotivate him to a level where you're selling the captain when perhaps you could keep him, right? So it's not the fact that Oliver's going to go and go, oh, I'm going to leave. It's the fact how powerful he was that this is going to be a massive blow.
100% agree.
So that's how a manager throws his toys out the pram. You're not going to walk out the club and, okay, maybe Pep could and Mourinho at that level. But, you know, most managers, you have a contract, you want to fulfill it, you know, and you're duty bound. You're an employee.
Yeah.
But you do have to make a stand.
Can I
And
ask you a quick
think Oliver
question
did.
about Oliver Glasner as well, as a former Palace player and manager yourself? Do you see any scenario in which he signs a new contract and stays at Crystal Palace? What happens if, for instance, Palace finish 5th and get into the Champions League?
Well, I have a lot of Palace fans who live near me at the moment, so I'm very reluctant to be honest about that. But I would suggest he's going to go.
Even if they got into the Champions League?
I do think he will go. I mean, he's done it in Germany with a not a fashionable team, and I'm not being cruel to Crystal Palace, not a fashionable team for winning trophies because it's the first one they've ever won, and he's done it here. You know, he will be courted, and I would suspect he will keep a dignified kind of neutral position and see what happens in the summer.
How high can he go? What sort of job are we talking about?
Oh, he's definitely highest level. Highest level. I mean, going on his record at the moment, for sure.
Okay, time to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk Harry Kane. Can't stop scoring, can he? And he's clearly enjoying himself out in Munich. Who wouldn't? But will he come back to the Premier League? Got the very latest on him next. See you in a moment.
Right, England captain Harry Kane admits his interest in returning to the Premier League has cooled. The 32-year-old has 2 years left on his Bayern Munich deal and is fully all in ahead of possible negotiations of a new deal. Now, Kane has scored 19 goals for club and country this season. Right, firstly, Alan, what do you make of these fresh quotes from Kane? It's his third season at Bayern. Can you see him staying there?
Well, of course you can, because he's had such great success. And, you know, the situation with the World Cup coming up and him going there with England is only going to enhance what he's doing. I mean, the stats are off the scale again. There's still that thing about beating Shearer's record back in the Premier League. And I think that still eats him a little bit. But not enough, I don't think, to leave at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, his release clause drops to 54 million in January next year. For him, though, is that still good value?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think, you know, even though, you know, we always, particularly with strikers, there's a sort of age where you always start to worry a little bit. And, you know, but the type of way he keeps himself conditioned, the attitude, the personality that he is, I still think that would be attractive. And obviously the ball will be in Harry's court. But, I think he feels good there. Everything's going well. So I think he'll stay.
His stats are mind-boggling. I mean, personally, I still feel he's underappreciated. I mean, do you feel that as well? Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, and one of the things whenever my teams come up against Harry, I would always say to my midfield players in particular, don't let him get a shot off, because he's always looking to get a shot off. So your centre-halves and your midfield players, if he starts dropping in, you know he's just arming the trigger. And he obviously got a goal like that at the weekend against, was it Frankfurt, where he's hit it from the outside of the box. He's very difficult to defend, and he gets all types of goals.
where do you see him? Where does his career go then, do you feel, over the next few years? Because he'll be 33 next July. But the way, as you've mentioned before, it keeps in good condition in the gym. He doesn't really drink much, if at all. I can personally see him playing at a very good level to maybe 35, 36. How do you see his career going over the next few years?
Yeah, I think, the type of game he has. And, when I think back to Alan Shearer, who had the cruciate injury, and he changed his game when he got a little bit older and was a bit more cuter. He had that kind of wisdom to do that. And I think Harry's got that same wisdom, that he'll change his game as his pace slowly drifts away from him a little bit in these last couple of years. He'll get more technical, he'll get better. And that is the truth of him. He's almost like an AI striker. He improves himself every little bit, and that's why his stats still were adding up.
Do you see him going back to England, Premier League at any point?
At some point, I think.
Where do you reckon?
Arsenal. I only said that because you're Spurs, man.
Oh, right. Well, well, Harry Kane and his England colleagues will be in focus tomorrow at 4:30. Our football correspondent Rob Dorset hosts a discussion with journalists Henry Winter and Simon Peach on Tuchel's reign so far and whether England will win the World Cup.
Right, we are 7 games, that's all, into the Premier League season. So we think that's plenty of time to get some opinions on some of the most significant moves of the window. Right, we're going to get Alan's take as we've reached out to some of our Premier League contacts, including some very high-level execs and coaches for their honest assessments. Mark, a quick word with you first then. Florian Wirtz, what do we make of his start at Anfield?
Well, clearly it hasn't gone to plan. But as Alan said on the show at 4 o'clock, he knows a couple of players at Liverpool, and within training, within the club, there is a real appetite for what he can be and what he can become. There's a quality player. They've paid a total package that could be worth 137.5 million euros. You don't invest that kind of money, particularly with a data model that Liverpool use with regards to a lot of their recruitment, if you're not comfortable that he's going to become a superstar for many, many years to come at Anfield. And I guess really the question I'd pose to Alan is, you always sign players, and do you judge them at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? At what point do you say, this is working or this is one we've got wrong?
Well, there's been a couple of players that I've had a couple of training sessions with and knew straight away that this isn't going to work. But the personality of the player is very important, and sometimes they just come in and just set the place alight, and you know straight away that this is going to be a massive acquisition for everyone. I think this particular player, when he played for Leverkusen, he played on the side and he kind of ghosted into the number 10 position. For Liverpool, he's played the number 10 and really in the meat of where most Premier League teams don't lose the middle of the pitch. They overcompensate in the middle. So there's no room in there. And I think he's found it hard to get into games, to find any room. It might be better to give him a little go into the position that he was playing at Leverkusen, on that left side and coming in. So that's an option for them. Other than that, it's just going to be time. As I said to you, with the contacts I have at Liverpool, he's an outstanding footballer. There's no doubt his credibility at the training ground is still right here. I think they're all waiting for the game where he explodes, and I think that's probably not far away.
And one of the problems that Liverpool have is they've got Alexander Isak, they've got Hugo Ekitike, who's hit the ground running, Florian Wirtz, who has this big price tag. You've got Mo Salah, who's locked in on the right-hand side, and you've got to try and find a system that gets the best out of 4 different players who are all in that front four. And that's not something that's going to happen in 7 Premier League games. It's going to take time, and that's where, particularly with Florian, you just have to be patient, because I think, like Alan says, it'll get there. But
that has been Liverpool's model, particularly the last 2-3 years, to have like the 6 top strikers, and then if it's not working, to sub the other, the B gang on, or the finishers off, or whatever you want to call them. And it's worked particularly well for them. So, I think there might be a situation where Wirtz will sit on the bench for 2 or 3 games, and Slot will be thinking about the game where he can put him in, where he can make most impact. And that's what I would be looking at to do if I was the manager there.
Let's talk Alexander Isak. We all expected him to, Mark said Ekitike hit the ground running. He didn't say that with Isak. Should Liverpool fans be a little bit concerned given how much he cost?
Not in my eyes. I mean, I think there'll always be the stigma of the way the transfers happened over him. So there's a bit of pressure on him, I think. I think he senses that. There isn't from the Liverpool fan base, but from everybody else, I think there's a bit of bad feeling towards him, because you never want your player at your football club to go down that road. So I think he's carrying a bit of that. And I think the media as well are a little bit kind of, you shouldn't have done that kind of attitude to him. But he's an outstanding footballer. I don't think he's the best striker in Europe, which we talked about.
Really?
I don't. I think Haaland's above him. I think Harry Kane's above him. But he's certainly in that criteria. And he's going to have a great future. He's only a young fella. The best years are ahead of him.
If you listen to some people in Germany, they say that Nick Voldemade is rubbish. What do you think about him?
Well, I really like him, and he's had a great start. And I love his personality.
Yeah.
He's perfect for Newcastle. The penalty at the weekend down the Gallagher end, and he's just put it in the top corner. Things like that. That's just going to make that bond stronger. And of course, because of the Isaac, what he did in terms of trying to force that move, this guy's the replacement. And so all the positivity is with him. All the local press, everybody's with him. And he's grasped it, and he looks terrific. I'm really thinking he's going to be a great addition to not just Newcastle, but to the Premier League.
He's a different type of player as well. I think that's what football fans and Newcastle fans need to remember. He's not the same profile of player as Alexander Isak. Speaking to people in Newcastle, they're really impressed with his technical ability.
Yeah.
He's obviously he's a big lad. I think some of the things on social media, he went to local supermarket, Tesco's, and bought a new duvet and bought a toilet brush, and and he's in amongst the city, and he's there with his friends, and he's just buying into Newcastle life, and that's what they love up there. Yeah. They want to feel like you are one of them, and that's what he's embraced. And I think he's got that character and that personality, and the weight of expectation, being a record signing for that football club, and the expectation of him being a number 9, you've got to score the goals. And so far he's delivering, but he's delivering with his personality as much as he is on the pitch, and that's key.
Alan, window after window after window, we said Arsenal need a striker. Have they got the right one in Victor Gyökeres?
Well, I personally, I really liked him at Coventry. I thought he was definitely on the route to the Premier League. He obviously ended up going to Sporting Lisbon, where he'd done terrific. He was always bustling, used to go down the sides with pace, held the ball up. His goal scoring was good enough to warrant this move. And I think at Sporting Lisbon he got better. I thought his first couple of games he was quiet, but he's improved a little bit. He's settling into the position. There's a huge responsibility on him because, I think if Arsenal are going to win the league, he needs to get 25 goals and or at least 20. So, there is pressure on him. I think he's handled it reasonably well. I think the jury is slightly out on whether he's going to get those 20 goals.
Very quick word on Jack Grealish. Is he back?
Well, I'm pleased that he's back, at least on the forum of, us talking about him, because he's a special talent and I think he's a great personality too. So, it's typical. He gets the Man of the Match award at Crystal Palace and decides that Adam Morton should have won it, and that's typical kind of comment that he comes up with, and he plays a little bit like that. He's respectful, and I just enjoy watching him. And I think Moisey, it's good for David Moyes to have someone like him like that as well, because Moyes has always had this tag of being a bit conservative. So it's nice that they're in their moment together, and I hope it continues.
I need a yes or no. Should he be in the England squad?
Yeah. That'll
do me. Right. Today we've been asking who's been the Premier League's best signing since 2020. Around 250,000 of you have got involved. We will reveal the results next. See you in a moment.
Right, results time. All day we've been asking who you think is your club's best signing in the 2020s. Our club reporters provided their top 3. Boom! Right, here we go. And with your help, we narrowed it down to the top 10. And here are your top three. Over 250,000 of you voted. This is now the top three. In third place, you have voted for Gabriel's £27 million move to Arsenal. In second place, Bruno Fernandes' £67.7 million move to Manchester United from Sporting Lisbon. And drum roll. Awful drum roll. With over 40% of the vote, you have voted the best Premier League signing in the 2020s is Erling Haaland's £51.1 million move from Borussia Dortmund to Manchester City. Right, we have a sit down now.
You come over, Michael.
Yeah.
Right, Haaland. Alan, £51.5 million, 136 goals in 155 games. That's just a no-brainer, isn't it?
I would have thought so. And when you look at that figure now, 51 million, it sounds cheap, doesn't it? So I know, it's just amazing how it moves on the Premier League, the finances. But yeah, for sure, outstanding talent and really at the top of his game right now.
Bruno Fernandes, number 2. Did that raise eyebrows, Mark?
He's been exceptional. How many times have Manchester United had to rely on him late in games? Grabs the game by the scruff of the neck, comes up with a goal or an assist or something, or just does something that gets the crowd off their feet. He's been constantly brilliant in so many ways, and he's been one of the very few shining lights this decade, hasn't he? Since he joined in January 2020, he has been exceptional.
Would he be second on your list, Fernandes?
No.
Why not?
There's sometimes in games I think he goes missing, and at United he is that kind of technical player that can go missing. But I think he's done it on too many occasions for me. Then I would like to see, certainly a better return on my money than he's delivered. But with the kind of voting system you have, Man United fans, they've gone for Fernandes, I think.
They have. They didn't, though, go for Cole Palmer. They went for Gabriel in third, Carve. Does that surprise you?
A little bit. I think, look, Gabriel's incredible defender. Brilliant deal to get him for just £27 million. But Cole Palmer, I think, finished fourth in the vote, I think. But Cole Palmer is somebody who finished 8th in the Ballon d'Or. The only Premier League-based player who finished above him was Mohamed Salah. And he can't be included in this because Liverpool signed him before 2020. So I think you could have made a pretty good case for Cole Palmer being in the top 3. He was voted the best player at the Club World Cup in the summer as well. I would have had Moses Caicedo in there as well.
Yeah.
And I would also have had Jean-Philippe Mateta.
OK, you've got 20 seconds, Michael.
Well,
go on.
Very quickly on Gabriel, I think Arteta has transformed that squad. And the thing with Arsenal now, you could have had, you've got Saliba, Gabriel. They're looking very, very strong indeed ahead of this season.
OK, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. We've had a special show today, the transfer show. Hope you've enjoyed it. We've got a real special one for you tomorrow as well, because we have got Inside Manchester United, a deep dive into what is going on at that club. That should be quite some programme. Inside Manchester United. That's Sky Sports News, 7 o'clock tomorrow. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Alan, Carve, Mark, Michael, thank you very much for your company. Or Russell, you decide. That is our transfer show. Right, coming up next, Sports Centre. We have an update on Rangers' hunt to replace Russell Martin. See you later.